Hey everyone, so today we are going to go through DCU Batman and we're going to talk about some core philosophy, Batman as a myth, not a gimmick, um, and kind of give examples and ideas for what I would like DCU Batman to be like and what the villains and the Bat family should kind of be like going forward. If you want to make it comic accurate as possible and fantastical, then there's certain things you need to be able to pull off. And they have the opportunity to potentially make the best Batman movie ever made, but you need to put in certain things for it to be perfect. The story, most stories will always work, but if you make sure you put these things into it, you're going to have a better story overall for comic fans, and the general audience is going to love it either way. So, um, the Batman is experienced. He's feared and strategic. He's emotionally guarded but functional. He's less of this angry loner and he's more like a kind of a dark general, especially with the Bart family. I don't want him going around being like good soldier, good soldier. I want him being like, you did well, son. I'm proud of you. But like in a kind of I'm leading you. You are a soldier in this fight, but we're just not going to use those terms. He shouldn't be learning to be Batman. We should meet him a good bit into his career, not mid career because there's a lot of story to tell, but like he's already a legend in the underworld of Gotham. Criminals don't go like, "Oh, is Batman real? Did you see that shadow man? He's a giant bat." No, no, no. It should be like, "It's the Bat. Did he see me? Get out of here, man! It's the Bat." You know what I mean? They should be terrified of him. I don't think he should be like mid 40s. I think he should be like maybe mid 30s to late 30s. There's nothing saying that like he didn't conceive Damien with Talia when he was kind of 20, when he was still training with the League and fell in love with Talia but had to leave because him and Raz didn't see eye to eye, and this was just after Talia and him conceived Damien consensually, I might add, because they just they fell in love, whatever. Um, Gotham should know exactly who he is, like not his identity, but they should know of Batman, and the cops should like quietly respect him. But also be aware that they have to follow the parameters of the law, so they can't like out themselves. You know, um, he makes mistakes, and he also on top of making mistakes and learning from them, he needs to live with them, and he needs to live with not winning every fight as well. Batman should like especially with like the lack of a Robin or backup, he should fail in certain circumstances. He should get knocked out here and get saved by Nightwing because Oracle called him in, or Tim should drop from the ceiling and rescue him. Things like that. You need to see him that he's not like a complete like he's not a god. Um, he should have a somewhat full Bat family. Um, but I don't want it overstuffed. I don't want like Duke and Spoiler and even Batwoman. It should be like Dick, Barbara, Jason, Tim, and then Damien with Alfred. That's it. That's all you need. You don't need to overstuff it. You don't need too many characters. You just leave it at that. And if you want to mention Cassandra Cain down the line, if that ties into a different story with like whatever, you bring them in afterwards, but you don't have you drop the audience right into the middle of it, but don't completely stuff it either. Um, the serious villains should already be established. Everyone in the universe is aware of Joker. They're aware of Freeze. They're aware that Penguin is partially running half of Gotham. Two Face is locked up in Arkham. They should already be established. Things like that. And the villains that come into it should be either like not that they broke out of Arkham, but that like Firefly is there, or Hugo Strange is like working the courts to get all these villains into Arkham so he can do experiments on them or whatever, or that like everyone, all those villains are established, but like Bane shows up in Gotham and no one's seen Bane before, and he's this formidable foe. Like do things like that, but maybe he met Bane years ago in Santa Prisca or something like that. You know, have him established a bit, but be, you know, a new villain in a sense. Room for legacy. I think I have a couple of different ideas about how I would do a legacy, but I'm not going to go into that now. I'm not going to talk about that. Gotham should be kind of stylized. It should be old, decaying, you know, a bit derelict in certain areas, and it should be hyper corrupt. Um, the architecture should be like gargoyles, old church buildings, you know, even a bit of like neon grime kind of stuff like that. The tone should be, I don't think it should be noir mythic. I think it should be mythic, but like dark, but also not miserable. Fear without nihilism, in a sense. Um, Batman should also not fight like a pure MMA guy. Um, he has different fighting styles, so his combat is hybrid. It's dirty and it's situational. You know, he should be a brawler, but like if he needs to, he can switch into like a kind of a, you know, he can switch styles, switch stances, things like that. You should show that he's well aware of boxing, judo, jiu-jitsu, karate, kung fu, and he should be able to change his style dependent on the villain. When he drops in between a load of goons, it should be like proper brawling, MMA brawling, like stand striking, and then if he gets knocked down, he gets him into a like a, you know, like, do you know what would be a great kind of choreographer? John Wick. That would be really good. Imagine John Wick without the weapons. That should be Batman, really. Um, he should have like short bursts with fast finishes, psychological dominance as well by him coming out of the shadows. He should win the fights by like breaking formations, breaking, you know, using fear as a weapon in itself and disrupting balance. Not long exchanges with kind of flashy combos. It should be quick and effective. He, okay, for his intelligence and prep time, the prep time should be smart. He should be smart in the moment. He reads patterns, he can anticipate behavior, and he can make a ruthless decision real fast. Um, you know, he like he should be, the prep time should be that like something happens and he's like, "Ha, I planned for this like 6 months ago." You know, he should, you know, you should kind of be very careful with how he does things with the prep time, but there's ways to do it. For the villains, as I said, save Joker. Don't oversaturate it at all. I'm going to get into more detail with that in a minute. Um, the Bat family to me should be essential. Um, and they should be aware that like it should fall into the bigger DCU as well with the Bat family. That like, oh, Oracle is managing all of them. Nightwing is in Bloodhaven. Jason could be like on, you know, the hill in Gotham. He should could be like that's his area, you know. That's his, that they're his streets. Batman stays away from that and he leaves him sort things out. But if he hears any excessive force, he will go and correct Jason and pull him back into line. But have him, you know, have Batman be the tactician for the Justice League, so that like if he has to go off world or to a different country or to Metropolis or wherever, um, Nightwing would like maybe come back to Gotham and help out while he's gone. Or they'd pool, the Bat family would pool all their resources to keep Gotham safe while he's missing. He should be the one who plans for failure on everything. Um, he should like he shouldn't be the one either that like out punches Superman. He should be like, there's a great one in the animated series. I'm not sure if it's a Superman episode or, but I think it's a Superman episode where him and Batman team up, and Batman goes to Metropolis and all that. I think you should have the scene where he grabs Superman by the arm and he actually tosses him over onto a table. Like, in a sense, Batman should be able to kind of do that because he's so physically fit and he's strong enough, and he has the martial arts training to be able to do that. And it nearly puts Superman going, whoa, what? Whoa. And it's like, he didn't beat me because he's strong, he beat me because he's smart. He should be able to be like the one that outthinks the entire room when he's sitting down with the Justice League. Flash might be like saying stuff and whatever, and he's like, you didn't think of this, and this. And everyone in the room is like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, good one, good one. Yeah, we didn't actually think of that, you know? And it should be as well that, like, with the Justice League, I think they should go the kind of the animated Justice League where he's not, like, he's a member, but he's not, like, the leader in a sense. Superman should be kind of the one that leads them, but really Batman is the kind of, he's the tactician and he's a leader when he steps in, but the Justice League is kind of like, oh, Bruce, we thank you for the watchtower, but you're kind of necessary. Would you mind coming up and helping us with this, because we need you to like, direct this, because Superman just wants to like do this, and we're like, that's not really a good idea. Could you come and help? He shouldn't be like there all the time because his goal is Gotham, not world peace or otherworldly threats. It's singled on Gotham, so like he's a member, but he's like not there all the time. He might send like, I don't know, Nightwing and Red Hood to the Justice League for help instead of him sometimes, depending on the villain, depending on what's happening. Um, he should kind of make the entire thing uncomfortable for people, where they're like, "Oh, but you're a member," and he's like, "Yeah, but you can do this on your own. You don't need me, but I know you need me." you know. Um, Bruce. Bruce is very important because I think people need to kind of be put back in their place, for people who are like, oh, he doesn't, instead of beating up poor people, he should help the poor people. No, no, read a comic and cop on. He should be the proper public philanthropist that he is in the comics. He should be an absolutely ruthless businessman. And when I mean ruthless, I mean he's willing to sacrifice stock price for the greater good. He should be like, complete merger and hostile takeovers. He should really come across like that, but it's all in the sense of greater good in the long run. And you may not see it in the moment, but that's the way it is. Um, I think as well for the DCU, legacy and succession doesn't really matter. I don't know if the DCU is going to follow the MCU type of style where it's going to tell the story over a load of years, these things happen, blah blah blah, and then you're going to have like, I don't know, not the new Avengers, but like the younger sidekick team that becomes the Avengers. I don't think you should really do that in the DCU. I think you should tell the story of all of them, have the Justice League fight off all the threats, blah blah blah, finish the DCU phase 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you come back like 5 years later and you do the new Justice League, or the updated legacy characters becoming the new heroes following forward, like Terry and maybe you should have like Superboy coming in, and like Green Arrow's sidekicks and stuff like that, like Young Justice basically. You should have like Young Justice, but they are building them to be the next Justice League, and that should be the legacy. Um, Early to mid career, but he's not a newbie. So like, I wouldn't call myself an expert. I have read most of Batman. I think I have maybe 2 issues to read, and I read all of Detective Comics up to where we are right now. So, do I consider myself a fan? Yeah, a mega fan, a super fan, obviously. Do I consider myself an expert? For some strange reason, Batman is contested with certain things more than any other character. For example, his no kill rule. Um, People are like, oh, he shouldn't. The whole point of Batman is that he doesn't. And forget about what happened for like 8 months back in 1939. You can't dismiss 80 years of comics of him not killing and creating this ethos around not killing, which gave the character way more depth and gave him a bigger purpose. Um, to the point that you can't turn around and go, "Oh, Batman should kill. Batman should not murder. Batman should not kill." Should he allow people to die is a very, very grey area. We all know that. Oh, I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you. Grey area. I'm not going to go there. I don't really like that one because I suppose my own personality, I don't, someone trespasses on me, then yeah, yeah, if you're gonna, it's none of my business if anything happens to you, you know. But I'm not gonna reach out a hand and save you either. So maybe that's just the way I look at it. I don't know, So it's hard for me to wrap my head around that bit. I think that's a very grey area. But um, Batman should not kill and should be seen to not do so as well. That's the point of what Batman movies have gotten incorrect. And I hate all the hype around the Batman 2022, in which they're like, oh, he doesn't kill, he doesn't, it's like, sorry, no, but if you're going to call out Keaton, Kilmer, Clooney, Affleck, which is a whole other topic, we're not going to go there, but if you're going to call out all the rest of them, you need to call out Pattinson as well, because his actions directly led to people dying. The chase scene with Penguin, I mean, like, there was a load of people died in those pileups. It's a realistic, grounded movie. And if you want it to be realistic and you want it to be grounded, then that pileup should have been shown on the news afterwards, and it should have shown that people died. There was tankers blowing up. People died. It's like, I don't get why people are like, oh, he didn't kill anyone. It's like, no, 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 no. Yes, he didn't like shoot anyone in the head, but he did point a goon's gun at another goon, and the goon pulled the trigger, which shot the guy in the chest. He shot two guys with grapples into like the thigh and the leg, and pulled them off like a 50-foot drop, and just like swung around, and they fell, but like no one cared that where they went. You know, like you have to you. The thing about a Batman movie is if you want to do it, you got to do it in a specific way where you have no collateral damage in a sense. So, for example, if a fight goes down and you see him fight a load of goons and he messes them up, we're talking Arkham levels of fighting here, right? We're talking BVS warehouse scene. That type of skill and all that, but you need to use your camera work after they're all subdued, and you need to show that like, oh, this guy's groaning over in the corner. There's a guy passed out drooling, but like he's obviously breathing. You need to show that like it's excessive force to the point that it's only making them unconscious. Or like I've no problem with like Batman using martial arts and knocking bones out of sockets and sending, we'll say, but the Absolute Batman annual where he does that thing to the Nazi's arm. I want to see that's it. I want to see like bones popping out. I want to see like proper choreographed martial arts, but you gotta do it in a way that it's like he's completely aware about like things like head trauma and things like shock and other things like that. Like he trained for all these years on how to be the best martial artist he could be and be the best detective and tactician and everything. But you also need to go, hang on a second, his father was a doctor. And the way I always looked at Batman, especially in terms of his father, is that his father was a doctor, he took a Hippocratic oath. So, like, with that, you can't hurt anyone, you can't kill anyone. And I see the moniker of Batman also being that. It's a vocation for him. It's like he takes this Hippocratic oath that he's like, I'm trying to do good, but I'm not going to take a life because of what happened to me. You get, I you may not get what I'm saying, but that's the way I kind of perceive it based off. That's my own perception as well. That's not something that's in the comics, but this is the way I would kind of do it, I suppose. But so like you kind of got to show that like the camera work has to be specific. Like the fight ends with like 10 goons, whatever, and then he walks towards the next doorway or room, and you gotta like pan the camera around a little bit just to show that like all these guys are actually trying to get to their feet, but they fall down again and pass out, or they're still breathing, they're not bleeding out, they're not, it can't be ambiguous at all. You can't have things like in the Batman where you have this massive pile up and it's not addressed afterwards on the news, because it leaves it way too ambiguous for certain viewers who were very critical of that movie, like myself, to go, nah, hang on, you want it realistic and grounded, then those people died. If you want it realistic and grounded, then some of those goons were killed by Batman's direct actions, and you gotta be real with it. Just like Keaton in Batman Returns, where he throws the bomb down the hole after throwing the goon down, like that guy's dead. It's obviously dead. Do you know what I mean? And like, there's other bits in Batman. Like I think Batman and Robin, where like, I think that's one of the only ones where it's kind of like goofy, and that fantastical thing where like, like one of Mister Freeze's goons comes up to him and he punches him through the, what is it? It's like a drinks tray or something, a wooden drinks tray or something like that. And he punches him. And he's like, "Good night" or "Bye bye," something like that. And you're like, "That's kind of what I want. I want that, but on a more updated version. You want to be able to see that like he's aware of what he's doing. He's aware of excessive force, even though he still uses it, and that there can't be any ambiguity at all. It just cannot be there, because then you're going to get criticism straight off the bat. The bat. Anyway, um, next point, and this is something that has come into comics before. He should not be called in for random murders. He should only be called in for like high profile stuff, like in the Batman. He's called in for the mayor's murder, but he's also called in because there was a note left for him, which makes sense. So there's two reasons. Look, we've a high profile murder, and there's a note here for you, so really you should kind of come over here and check this shit out. But like, you, you, you can't be calling him because like a store clerk was killed. I was reading Batman Unseen only this morning, and in the first issue, there's a store clerk who's killed by the bad guy, but there's no connection between the bad guy and the police. There's no connection between the bad guy and Batman. There's no reason for Batman to show up to a random person's murder when it's like an everyday thing in Gotham. It makes no sense. He's not a cop. He's Batman. he needs to be only called when something serious has happened. You know, it needs to be like when Jim and Bullock are like, "Bro, I have no idea what's going on here. I, they're wearing masks and something's happening. I don't know what to do here." And it's like, okay, we've been working on this case for 2 weeks. Call in the big guns because he's a serial killer and he's sent us a note that it's going to happen again tonight. Something like that. You gotta. It has to be substantial for him to get involved. And another thing as well, if you want to do it correctly, you need to be aware of the law. And I think one of the only books that kind of does this really well is Gotham Central, because they show that the police are like, it's one of the interns, one of the like secretaries is the one that has to turn on the signal because the police can't physically touch it because that would be illegal. And it's like, oh, that is genius. Those little bits about the law really need to be put into it. If I was to do an early Batman story, like first couple of years, he wouldn't be like the massive martial artist that you would see. It wouldn't exactly be like year one. Well, it would, but to a sense, he would be more in the shadows. He would be doing surveillance, recon. He'd be videotaping crimes so that um, he could have these bad guys taken down. Like if they're selling drugs and stuff like that, he'd like videotape it to gather evidence for Jim. He wouldn't be getting involved unless someone's life was in the line. If a mobster was about to shoot an innocent person, then he would get involved and he would do what he needs to do. But in the first, like, maybe year, 2 to 3 years, it would be more him building a repertoire. He's in the shadows, he isn't seen. Um, and then it would get to the point where when he is starting to be seen and the goons are being taken out, that Robin would come into the story because he realizes that, in a sense, he can take on 5 or 6 guys, but in a room full of 20 people, his smoke bombs and everything else will only work so far. And it needs to be a thing where, like, maybe he's shot in the cowl and it protects him, but he's like, severely bruised and like almost brain damaged from it. So he's like, if I had a partner, that wouldn't have happened. And I need to continue here. There needs to be more than just, oh, this poor orphan that I need to help because his parents have been killed in front of me, just like what happened to me. I get it. I get it, but there's ways that they have written the Robins and how they approach Batman and how he approaches them that you're kind of like, you can't force the kid into it, but there needs to be not like one reason, there needs to be like three. It needs to be, I'm aware that I need backup and I need help. I'm aware that this child is vengeful and I want to point that in a healthy in quotations, direction, because otherwise they're just going to end up a killer who gets revenge and then ends up in prison or something like that. So I want to teach them a better way to do this. And then maybe the third reason could be like, oh, they stumbled across his secret, so he's like, well, okay, do you know what I mean? And you have to be like we'll say, it wouldn't really work with um Dick or Jason, but it would work with Tim, where Tim's like, I need you to take me on, or this. Tim, like, you need to be like, look, you have no Robin at the moment. I know you have no Robin, and I know exactly who you are. Um, I'm a genius. You need me. You need Robin. So take me on. It needs, Tim is one of the only Robins that kind of works that way, where it's almost a threat. Like, I know you're not going to kill me, and you're not going to really do anything to me. You're not going to pay me off because you can't. So make me Robin, or this will happen. You know, and that's the way you kind of need to go about it. You need to go. There's a lot more to this in my head that I can't really get out in words right now. So I'm gonna move on, and we'll come back to that at a different time. Um, Yeah, so okay, if you were to start off the DCU Batman, first of all, he has to be a few years into the career. We don't need an origin story anymore. We don't need a build up. What we need is to drop you, and it's like with a kid. You throw them into the water to and they learn to swim. You kind of need to throw the audience into this world. There's too much backstory, too much lore, too much stuff in the zeitgeist, and too much thrown into the general audience faces that they're not going to know who Robin is, that they're not going to know who Joker, Two Face, Penguin, everyone is. So why are you holding back with your movies? And that was one of the problems I found with recent adaptations. Even the Nolan trilogy, as great and as much as I love them, there is flaws about Batman's journey to me in that it's a Batman single story. There's no Robin, there's no family, there's no kind of family arc at all. And sometimes as a fan, you really you kind of you want to see Dick transition from Robin to Nightwing. You want to see Jason get killed. You want to see him come back. You want to see Tim as the one of the best Robins, and you want to see Damien come in and completely mess things up and have Tim become Red Robin and have Damien become the new Robin, and it builds from there. If you were to really do it, I think the best thing to do for DCU Batman is Tim is Robin when we start off. We're about 10 to 15, maybe 10 years into his career. Or what you could do, which would be great, is have Jason have been killed only maybe 2 years previous, and you continue. Maybe Tim is on the scene, but he's not Robin yet. But then you Damien come into his life. So basically, maybe he's dealing with Tim, and Tim's like, "I want to be Robin," so he makes him Robin. But then Damien's like comes along like only a couple of months or a couple of weeks later, just as Tim is starting off, and then he's got to juggle this son and his new adoptive son, and you're like, okay, how who's going to be Robin? How's this going to work out? So Damien's going to fight for the cowl or the moniker mantle of Robin, and it's actually going to be like that's the battle for the cowl, not the Batman cowl. Dick doesn't want it. Jason certainly will never want it. Um, you kind of, I don't know where I'm going with this. You have to, how do I put this? I would like for both of them to be on the scene and for you to have all this backstory. And for the movie number one should start with like, it should start with like the signal in the sky, and it pans down to the streets of Gotham, and you just have the undercarriage of like a purple and green van, and it's just like Joker goons shooting out of the back of it at the Batmobile as they're chasing them through Gotham. That's what you want. You want like Robin sitting next to him in the Batmobile, and you want him chasing these goons, but it's not like a build up story where it's going to go 3 weeks previous. It's just that's what's happening, and then there the story starts. But this interaction has got absolutely nothing to do with the main story. It's just an opening sequence, and if you're to do it, this is another very very important thing. Joker not only is overused in the movies, he is overused in the comics a lot. I get it. Batman and Joker are money makers. I get that. But Joker in the comics and in the movies should basically be like Gandalf in Lord of the Rings or Gandalf in The Hobbit. He's there, He sets up the story. That's fine, but he goes away. And you get a cameo? No, no, you don't get a cameo in the second movie. It's Joker. You hear his name be mentioned, or you have like Oracle go, oh, there's a bunch of Joker goons robbing access chemicals or whatever, and you're like, oh, okay, let's go stop them. But you don't see Joker. You only see him for maybe one scene in the first movie, and that's it. That's it. He could be already locked up, and the goons are trying to get him out, or something like that. Like he's Batman's aware of him. He knows about him. He's established, but like he's not in Arkham, and he's not running around Gotham causing chaos every night. Joker is like Thanos. You gotta build him up. You really gotta build him up. Like Matt Reeves, what he's doing with like Barry Kahan, I don't even think I kind of get it. He should have been in the first movie, which makes sense. Like he has that scene with Riddler, and there's the deleted scene, but that deleted scene should never have happened. That should never have happened. You should have had the little thing with him. He never mentions his name. That's it. Whatever. Second movie, nope. You mention his name again. You have a small little cameo, a little even like a kind of a nod to him. Oh, Mister Unknown in cell 3 is cackling again or something like that. And then in the third movie, that's where you have your reveal. That's how you build a Joker. You don't have him being the villain of the week or the villain of the day. You don't have him being a supporting villain to someone else. You have him being this. You have him being as mysterious as Batman is to the street goons. He has to be in the shadows. He has to be feared. There has to be a build up of him. You can't have him going around like doing random things. Oh, I stole the diamond, blah blah blah. No, 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 no. He has no plans, but he's intelligent. You gotta do a mix of Heath Ledger's Joker with kind of like Batman the Animated Series Joker. He has to be an all out genius, but an agent of chaos. He has to be also, this is something that no Joker adaptation has ever gotten for me. Maybe the animated movies have kind of done it. He has to be insane. And when I say insane, I mean he has to be mid conversation and go off on a fucking tangent. He has to be like doing something, and like we'll say he's about to kill someone with a crowbar, and he goes, "Oh, a pretty bird." Like he has like something like that. You know what I mean? Like he has to look at like a dead body and go, maybe if he's after like killing him or something, and he looks at him and he goes like something crazy, like, "Huh." Like in The Departed, where what's his name kills your one on the beach, and he's like, "Oh, she fell funny." You need that. You need like I know that's Jack Nicholson as well, actually. Yeah, but you know what I mean. You need like weird stuff to be going on with him to really show the audience that this guy is cray. He is crazy, and you need to use that to build your hype over a series of movies or TV shows. Joker should not, under any circumstances, be the villain of the first DCU Batman movie. He shouldn't be the villain of the second, maybe the third, maybe the fourth. He should be mentioned in one, teased in two, maybe revealed in three, put into Arkham, blah blah blah, but he comes back later on. He escapes. And then you're like, okay, this is serious. Joker's on the loose. You know what I mean? And like there needs to be things in it as well where like the morality of the no kill rule is brought into question. For example, with the police, with the courts, with the whole even the staff in Arkham, it needs to be that like, oh, Joker's up for the death penalty, but then maybe Hugo Strange comes in and he's like, you can't actually kill him because under the eyes of the law, he's mentally insane. So he has to go to Arkham to be rehabilitated to the best because his actions are whatever. You can't. He's mentally insane. You can't kill him. You can't put him to death for his crimes because of that, and that's an actual law. You can't do that. If someone's mentally insane and they kill someone, they don't get the death penalty. They get assessed and they get put into asylums or put into some sort of medical prison. That's what you need to do with him. There needs to be a reason why, you know, oh, you can't do this, can't do that, and then that way that can set up a whole other like cacophony of issues and kind of maybe even develop more stories out of it. Like for example, maybe someone tries to go kill him in Arkham, or like someone's one of the cops, his child or wife was killed in Joker's rampage. So in the courtroom, when he's found innocent by means of insanity, maybe the cop kind of snaps and tries to kill Joker, and then Batman is morally obligated to kind of step in and go, I kind of got to stop this cop from becoming a murderer, but I'd love for that bullet to hit its target, in a sense. You got to bring that moral kind of subjectivity to it, and you got to bring in those themes, and you got to point out that like his rule as Batman is, I will not kill, but I also will not allow anyone to die on my watch. Because that's something that is in the comics that like he's like, no, you can't kill him. And that in itself is, it's been noted as a form of mental insanity. But in a way it's, I don't know if you'd look at it as the height of being sane, really. Oh, you can't do that. Why? Because you can't take a life. Like, I get it, but I also get the whole revenge stuff. So there's two or three things you kind of got to look at there. No, we're going to stop with all that. And we're going to go into a few Batman kind of hot and cold takes, I suppose. Excuse me, just having a drink. So number one, Batman doesn't need prep time nearly as much as fans claim. Batman needs prep time, but I don't want the prep time to be seen, and I don't want it to be like, oh, he's fighting a villain, and then 3 days later he comes back and he takes him down because of this. I need it to be that like, oh, he returns to the cave after a villain escapes, and he's like, what's the villain's powers? What's this? What's that? What's that? And he assesses everything, and he goes, oh, I have a machine over here that heats up a room. So if I install that in this warehouse and we meet Freeze there tomorrow, then I'll turn it on and it'll help us take him down. You need the prep time to be things that, like, when he's in the cave, he's having these things built and he's developing techniques and he's developing all this different stuff that it's like, why are you doing that? And he's like, I don't know, it'll come in useful at some point, somewhere. That's his prep time. He doesn't need to be like, oh, I'm going to build body armor that'll sustain this and all that. No. Just have him have, like, these gadgets already on hand, and he's like, which would be the best thing to help me take him down or to help me fight this group of goons or whatever. That's what you need. You need him to be like what he was doing in like Batman Begins, where like he's constantly developing the suit. He's constantly like making, and not just the suit either. He needs to have multiple different types of suits, like in Batman Returns, all the other, the Schumacher ones and all that. Not in Batman Begins, where he has like one suit. It's the same model and different versions. He's got one in like the cave in Wayne Manor, and he's got one in the warehouse place that he's in, and he's got one. They're all the same suit, just the upgraded version of what he's building. No, 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 no. He needs completely different suits, and they all have their own reason. Underwater space adventures, like you know, battle armor, sub-zero temperatures, things like that. He needs to be equipped in the suit that'll suit him for the battle or for whatever he's going into. Bruce Wayne is more of a mask than Batman. No. There's three sides to Bruce. There's Bruce, there's Batman, and there's Bruce with his family. Is Batman the mask? Batman is a physical mask. Is Bruce a mask? Yes. What he is showing to the outside public, to Wayne Enterprises, to his charities, everything, it's sincere, but it's still a mask. It's not his true identity. The Bruce that sits in the cave talking to Alfred, that's Bruce Wayne. That's the real, true Bruce Wayne. And that is Batman in a sense, but Batman is just the suit he puts on. He is Batman, he is Bruce Wayne. There's kind of three psychological ego, id, and all that to it. You know, he's got his ego, his id, his super ego. You got to look at it from that psychological point of view where, oh, the boy in the alley is gone, and he became Bruce in the cave. This reclusive, loner, depressive, kind of obsessive compulsive type of guy. You need to see him push his body to the limits. You need to see him be like constantly like learning new things, learning new tactics, learning new methods, things like that. That's Bruce. That is the Batman. And I'm even doing it now. I'm calling him the Batman. I shouldn't be saying that because Batman is the suit Bruce that he shows to the public is Bruce Wayne, but the true entity is Bruce in the cave with Alfred and the Bat family. That's the truth. That's just Bruce. It's not Mr. Wayne. It's not Batman. It's just Bruce. He's raw. He's he himself, and that is Batman the mask? Is Bruce the mask? No, they're both a mask because they're not the real him. Simple as. Batman is emotionally unhealthy, but that's the point. He's emotionally unhealthy, but like, yes, of course he is. Um, he never dealt with it. He never dealt with his trauma. Well, he did, but it just not in a societal healthy way. So, yeah, Batman should age and stay aged. Yeah, I think the Eternal Prime Batman kind of cheapens the character. I think that's why people enjoy Batman Beyond and The Dark Knight Returns so much, because it sees the progression of that story that we've been following for years. You get the comics and whatever. I mean, he's been what, 30 something for the past 80 years in the comics. He hasn't aged. There's been versions where he has and all that, blah, blah, but you need to. If I was doing a run, it would start when he's going off to train. And just like, in the Bible with Jesus, he was 13 and then he was 30. There's 17 years of his life that is like not documented. And I find that with him as well. He's a child, his parents die, he grows up a little bit, he goes away, he travels the world, he comes back as an older man, well, a young man, but older, and he's like early 20s, and he kind of is around Gotham for a while, and then he starts becoming Batman. that's fine. But what happened between the ages of like 12 and 22? What happened in those 10 years? That never gets explained. You only get it in flashbacks. Batman Begins did it well, where you see him, he grows up a little bit. Joe Chill's put on trial, blah blah blah. Or his appeal comes up, and then he leaves Gotham, goes away for a few years, studies martial arts, does this, does that. He's stealing for a while. He finds Ra's al Ghul. There's a whole story there. Number one, he was in college when he went away in Batman Begins. No, he should be a lot younger than that. He should be a lot younger than that. And I also believe that when he returns to Gotham, I think he should be in search for himself a bit more. For example, I can't remember what run it was now, but there was a story where Batman came back and he tried to join the FBI. Sorry, Bruce came back and he tried to join the FBI, and I'm pretty sure he got into it, but he didn't. He left soon after because of the rules and regulations he had to follow in order to catch criminals, and he wasn't agreeing with it. Like, you got to do that stuff in a sense as well, where like he's aware of the law, but he's willing to bend rules to get what he needs for the safety of his city. So like, I would love to see him be like, go down the route of trying to join be a cop, be an FBI agent or whatever, for the greater good. He tries all these, legal methods first. He even like sets up things with when enterprises for like free legal aid and all this stuff, only for it, only for the corruption to be seen by him from his own eyes, and he goes, I gotta do this differently. If I am to achieve the goal I want, I've got to do this differently. And I think that's the point. You set that up at the start, and the main goal of Batman is quite simple. You haven't progressed with all the Robins and all the stories and all the other worldly things with the Justice League and everything, but he gets to an age where he's like in his late 40s, maybe even like early 50s or mid 50s, right? And he's getting older. His knees are weak, his back is sore. He's not as fast as he was. He's more of a lug now, like a brute. Instead of him being a tactical martial artist, he's more of a brawler. He boxes a lot more. He's a lot more different and stuff like that. If you do that, you can show him naturally aging, and that's what we need. And then you have his ultimate goal come into play. He's living in Gotham. His goal is to bring crime rates down and remove the corruption from his city. So you got to show that he has progressed, that the corruption has gotten better. He has worked with the systems through Wayne Enterprises, through the GCPD, through the mayor's office, through everything, and he's fled out corruption a real good bit in the city. There's still gangs, there's still, turf wars, there's still drug deals, there's still, all this stuff that normally happens, but the dirty, gritty Gotham that he came back to and that he was living in all his life, the Gotham that killed his parents, no longer exists. It's changed. And I think the end progression for Batman should be where he's getting older and he's tired and he's like sitting there, like, well, not sitting there, but maybe he's standing on like a building looking down over a city one night, and he's like really, really tired, and the Robins are like doing their job and everything, but like this particular night is very quiet. There's no police sirens, there's no signal in the sky. So he returns to the Batcave. He goes to sleep, and he wakes up the next morning and sees like a news bulletin, or gets like news from someone or something, that they're like, last night was the first night in Gotham without any major crimes. There was no murders, there was no mutilations, there was no, SA, there was no kidnapping, there was nothing. There was nothing. There was a few petty crimes, hubcaps stole off cars, a few bits of graffiti, some shops were robbed, some like pickpockets, things like that. But there was no like major crimes, you know. And then he finally gets to sit down and go, "Oh, we nearly did it. Like crimes at zero. The city's healing or healed." And then you set up the battle for the cowl, where he nearly turns around to them and he goes, "I will only continue if Gotham needs me. And right now, Gotham doesn't need me." And you see, you can set it up where like he gets laxed and he gets kind of too comfortable with there being no crime. Just like in The Dark Knight Returns, where, he kind of got things to a certain stage. He stepped out of the shadows in a manner of sense, and he, put the mantle away for a while. But then all this kicks off, so he has to come back into it. But you see, maybe it should be quiet for a while. So he's like, "Okay, you come on, you go out and do everything for me. I'm going to take a break for a while. I'm going to maybe go, I don't know, see Selena." Oh, God, I hate Selena. Anyway, um, you get what I'm saying. That there's a lull. So he's like, "Oh, I can step back a little bit, leave ye handle things," and then maybe a year or two passes and the Joker returns or something, and then he's like, "Oh well, boy, pulling me out of retirement, gotta go," you know. Um, you gotta kind of show those things. Um, then you gotta. There's a lot of other stuff as well, like with Raz, Raish, Al Ghul. Technically, it's Raz. Okay, I've looked this up myself, and I watched an entire like hour long YouTube video about the pronunciation of it from Arabic, and it's Raz Al Ghul. I'm sorry, I know people like Raish and all that. It's Raz. Ra'az, actually. Ra'az Al Ghul. Not Raz Al Ghul, Ra'az Al Ghul. That's how it is. Um, and Raz should be the one that understands Batman better than anyone, because he should be, in a sense, very much like the Joker, that he's a mirror image of Batman's goal. Raz's goal is to stop all crime and corruption, but his methods are wrong. So they should really see each other eye to eye on a lot of things, and I think Al Ghul should understand Bruce, especially, and Batman. And he's one of the only villains that properly has like admiration for him. He wants him to be the heir as well, and he wanted him to be the heir of the league. And it's like, that's genius. That's really, that's why he has a problem with him. So people should understand him at his core, but Raz has known him longer than any of his villains, because he's one of the ones who trained him, and he should understand him from a core aspect and really use that against him. Batman's best villain is Two-Face, not Joker. This goes back to my point about the Joker being overused and oversaturated in comics and movies. If you read the comics, Two-Face actually is one villain that is pretty formidable. And his stories, yeah, they're a bit wacky, like, oh, he fights on the second Tuesday of every month, like that's kind of a little cliche, but like you get it. But yes, I actually completely agree with this from reading the comics. Two-Face is one of his best villains. Penguin is actually the one who's overrated for me. I don't think Penguin's that good of a villain. He's better as the casino iceberg lounge owner that just has a load of goons. That's Penguin. That's all he's ever been. He's not a formidable villain. He's not a good fighter or anything like that. So yeah, I totally agree with this. Batman doesn't make Gotham better, he stabilizes it. He's not curing the disease, he's managing the symptoms. Gotham needs systemic change, not just nightly beatdowns. Um, yes and no, because yes, he manages the symptoms. He has to, because that's what like. He can't do everything, so he has to do what he can. So this goes back to the whole, if he's working for like 30 years in Gotham, stopping crime and everything, eventually, like, you get to a point where you're like, oh, do you know what, man? I'm not going to go rob that bank today. I couldn't be bothered because the bat will be out. Let's just get jobs. Do you know what I mean? And that's another thing as well. That's another big thing. One villain that people don't look at correctly, and I think that it should be looked at, is Freeze. Victor Freeze, you've got a couple of options on how you do him. And I think what would be great is you have all these warehouses being robbed. And Jim is like, I can't have my cops or security guards keep getting hurt. This guy's freezing their legs and they're losing whatever. Like, I don't want Freeze to be a cold hearted killer. Freeze should be like just a desperate man trying to save his wife. And I think a good way to show this is that, like, you have him robbing things and stuff and basically, like, Batman puts it together and goes, this guy's building something to do with cryogenics or anything, and he's like, I gotta find this guy in case he hurts people. But when he gets to him and he finds out what he's actually doing, he's like, you're not a villain, you're just desperate. You're just a man who had a lot of trauma and who nearly lost his wife and nearly lost his own life to these chemicals and all this. And I'm not gonna hurt you. I want to help you. So, I think it should be that straightforward. I don't think Free should be a returning villain at all. Free should be a one and done villain. And the only reason Freeze comes back is if something happens to Nora. If he still has her in stasis and another villain comes in and kills her, then Freeze returns to Gotham to seek his vengeance. And he won't let Batman get in his way. That's the story you should tell. Not the whole, I need diamonds to exact my evil plan. I'm going to freeze the city. No, no, he doesn't want to freeze the city. He just wants to save his wife. That's it. That's it. Take out everything else. Strip him down completely. Um, Gotham is the real main character. Gotham isn't the main character, but Gotham should be a character. That's one thing I think Matt got correct. Gotham feels like its own entity in that movie. You feel like the people can get pushed. The people of Gotham get pushed mentally either side and stuff like that. It's very interesting. The Bat Family makes Batman worse and better at the same time. Oh, the Bat Family makes Batman worse and better at the same time. No, I disagree with that. They don't make him worse. Um, I think, to be bluntly honest, I think the Bat Family needs to be shown to make him better. And the point of that is that, like, takes on Dick because he needs backup and he wants to point this gun in a healthy direction for Grayson. He needs to go, this is how you should do it. If you want to seek your revenge, then let's do it this way, right? Then he has him be back up, he has him grow up and become Nightwing. So, he's already after losing Jason, whatever. So then he's like, look, I'm not going to put anyone else in harm's way. I'm done with Robins now. And then Tim comes along and he's like, "Hey, I know who you are. Make me Robin or I'll tell. And you can't buy me off. I'm not morally corrupted. Ha ha ha." Do you know? So he's like, "Okay, I'll do that for you. Fine. Okay, I could use the backup. Actually, I got my ass handed to me there the other night. So, yeah, fair enough." And then Damon comes along and he's like, "Ooh, I'm getting older. I know I have sons, but one of them has gone on to do his own thing. One of them is a complete wild card. One I don't want in this life for too long. I would prefer him to stop and like go to college because he can do a whole lot more for himself and for me potentially. Because instead of maybe him becoming Batman, I think Tim should actually maybe be the one to take over Wayne Tech. Um, After Lucius, I think he should be, you know, groomed into that role, not the vigilante role. And I think that's something people never look at with Tim. They're like, "Oh, Tim would be a great..." No, 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 no. Tim would be a great CEO. So let's look at that option. The Bat Family does not make Batman worse. The Bat Family only adds to the story of the Batman. So it can't make him worse, it only makes it better. And you need to look at the strengths of each individual member, especially like Oracle, like Barbara, gets shot by the Joker and whatever, becomes Oracle, and she uses all that to be their tactician, their comms, their everything. Um, that only makes Batman better. It doesn't make him worse in any way, shape, or form. Yes, they can become liabilities. One of them gets kidnapped, one of them gets hurt. Then he worries about them, but at the end of the day, he needs to put things in place, um, so that that won't ever happen again. And that again leads back to his prep time. Okay, this happened. How did it happen? Oh, because the armor in Robin's suit in the midsection is weak, and we need to do something there. Okay, let's do that. Let's also set up a something something that does this, because that might come up in the future again. That's his prep time. Sees an issue, creates a solution. The solution gets used down the line when it needs to. Alfred is the true moral center of the Batman mythos. No. Without Alfred, Bruce becomes a villain, in a sense. But to a point that I feel Alfred and Bruce should disagree on certain things because of Alfred's background. He is one of the only Bat family members that is allowed to use guns. And I would love to see like an attack on Wayne Manor and like Alfred pulls out like a shotgun and he's like, "Oh, they're like, oh, I thought you didn't use guns." And he's like, "I don't subscribe to such niceties." And he like blasts the guy away, but it's not like pellets, it's like rock salt. So it's non lethal. And he's shooting them in like the legs and stuff. He's only incapacitating them, he's not killing them. Do you know what I mean? I think he should like somewhat follow the Bat family code in a way, by Bruce's teachings, by Bruce going, "I can't allow another mother, father, child, brother, sister to die again. I can't do that to anyone else. So I'm not going to, and you need to understand that. I don't care how many men you killed in war, back on the streets of little old England. If you were here with me and you're helping me with this, then we need to have some ground rules at least. I'll allow this, I'll allow that, but within parameters." Alfred being the true moral center, I don't directly agree with that, but he does put him in check when he needs to be put back in check. He does go like, Master Wayne, maybe you're a bit of a dope. Maybe you should cop on, sir. Like kind of, really kind of like pulls him on his own shit. And like be one of the only members of the Bat family that can properly like stand to Bruce. That can be like, you kind of need to cop on, and you need to grow up, and you need to do this, and you need to stop acting like that because you're pushing that person away. Can you reassess the situation, sit down, have a cup of Earl Grey, and we'll have a chat, and then whatever. Another thing, another thing as well that I want to talk about, and they did it in Beware the Batman, but I also want to talk about Bruce's consumption of food and drink. He should never take alcohol. I think he perceives to people that, oh, I'm drunk at a party, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. But I also think that, like, in Beware the Batman, they do a great thing where I think it wasn't kidneys, it was some gland or some piece of meat that he was using that had proteins and nutrients in it that would allow him to get micro sleeps. Or I think it was like, oh, it'll allow me to sleep for 4 hours a day. And it was like, oh, that's really cool. And I'd like for him to be like obsessed with that type of stuff. That he doesn't take alcohol, he puts nothing bad into his body. He's constantly looking at his vitals, constantly looking at his like, you know, nutrition management and all that, in the sense that he needs to be the best physical person he can be at all times. And even the sleep thing, I thought that was genius. That was really, really smart. And it's come up a few times about him micro sleeping and doing all these different things. And like that's something I'd love to see. Um, Animated Batman is consistently superior to live action Batman. Yes. Do you know why he's consistently superior? Because you can do things in cartoons that you can't really do on film. You need to put action sequences in, you need to put this in, you need to put that in. This goes back to the Batman, this goes back to Batman Returns, and everything else. In a cartoon, you were able to do things that you should be doing in live action, but it's almost like I feel like directors and people make up excuses. Oh, we were restricted with this, so this happened, blah blah blah. No, I'm sorry, but editing is very, very important. Your editing is very, very important. And why can you do it in a cartoon with extra frames, but you can't do it with a camera? That makes no sense. That makes no sense altogether. If you were to do a one for one shot of Mask of the Phantasm or Under the Red Hood, or, and I mean one for one, not the animated, like, Hush animated or any of the other ones. No, 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 don't change anything at all. Do a one for one and do it right, and you will have $1 billion movie on your hands. End of discussion. The fans will love it. They'll, the non-fans will love it. Just do that. Do that. Why is it superior? Because cartoons are able to do things that live action can't, or I should say, live action won't do. And I don't know why they won't do that. Matt got so close. He was the closest of all Batman directors for what he did. Now, Nolan did a great, great job. He did a superb job. But, like, not saving Ra's al Ghul, accidentally, well, not accidentally, but, causing Dent's death, things like that, you're kind of like, I'd rather not have any ambiguity around that at all. I think I've gone on now long enough. I have loads to say, and I could probably spend all day saying it. So I'm just going to wrap it up at this. Um, I hope you enjoy. Leave your comments and any thoughts you might have. I'd always be interested in seeing different perspectives and having a conversation about it. Might even give me some ideas for talking points for my next video. But I hope you have a nice, calming evening. Good night, everyone.